Why do we accept relationships that we know are bad for us? Why do we lose sight of ourselves trying to gain someone else's love? Why is it so hard to say no? Setting boundaries is true freedom. When you really don't care what other people think and you're unaffected by their criticism of you standing up for yourself, that's when life truly begins. I feel like a lot of the time we love people that are wrong for us, especially if we're on a healing journey of our own. Some people are sent to us as lessons. They're really not meant to stay forever. They're there to teach you things about yourself, or maybe they'll open wounds that you had closed off a long time ago because you didn't want to face them. And you better face them now because if not, they're just going to keep coming back to you in every lesson until you realize what you're supposed to learn. And it's important to remember that even though those people aren't meant to stay forever, they're there for a special purpose. Everyone has some sort of trauma or pain that they're living with, and sometimes they project that onto others unknowingly. Some people have no idea how their actions affect the people who love them, and sometimes we don't stand up for ourselves. Maybe we're scared of speaking up and losing them. But what is worse, really? Losing someone who doesn't value you or losing yourself? If those people are benefiting from you lacking boundaries and respect for yourself, they gotta go. I know it's hard, especially when you really love someone, and they might add value to your life in some way. You might have a lot of fun together, maybe you connect in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, if they're leaving you with a lot of sadness, causing you to doubt yourself, you don't really know who you are anymore, you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize yourself. I feel like, is that really worth it? More often than not, the only value they really have is the incredibly special love that you have, that you chose to shine on them. So try to remove yourself from the situation. Become an outsider looking in. Try to see that person for who they really are. Whether it's a friend or a significant other, what sort of things are they doing that benefit you in your relationship? Or are they only benefiting themselves? They make you feel like shit when you were too busy to respond to their texts. Maybe you had actual real life problems going on. Were they there for you to listen? Did you feel like you could depend on them? Or were they simply too busy? Sometimes I feel like people, they don't necessarily want us to feel bad, but they will make a bunch of excuses for why they couldn't show up for you properly. And let's say, I don't know. Let's just say you had like a dance recital or something like a soccer game that you were playing in, and you asked your partner to show up for you or your friend, and they didn't make it. But they told you all week, I'm going to be there and we're going to get lunch after and it's going to be so much fun. And then they drop the ball. And you're devastated because you were looking forward to it. And also, it's something that really means something to you. So obviously, you're upset, and you tell them that it really upset you and it hurt your feelings because you were looking forward to sharing this experience with them, and they blow up at you. I feel like that is a true sign that somebody is not right for you, especially if it was something important to you and they said they were going to make it, and life happens. There's circumstances that come up for everyone, and it doesn't mean that they're always going to be able to do the things that they wanted to do. But if they don't have a clear cut reason and it's just kind of, oops, oh, I forgot, or oh, well, one of my friends ended up having this really fun thing that I wanted to do instead. No, absolutely not. So I think those are the types of examples that kind of really they make a difference between something that I want to do for you because I love you versus I wanted to do it, but I couldn't because something came up that was better for me in the end. Another really helpful thing to do in this type of situation is write down a list of pros and cons. So I have to give credit to my mom for this one. And it's funny because anytime that I was uneasy about a situation, I would come to her and I would say, hey, or she would already know because her and I are so close, but I feel like shit right now. And I'm feeling anxious, uneasy, sad. Like this person that I love, either a friend or significant other, they're making me feel like shit. And she'd always say, write down a list of pros and cons. And I think, especially when you're trying to analyze something from the outside in, or, an outside perspective, they can really see things somebody you love, like you go to a friend, they can see things for what it really is. But we get so wrapped up in our own heads. We love that person so much that we're clouded by our own, well, I would say judgment, but maybe misjudgment. So I feel like it just helps to get a piece of paper. You could do it on your phone or computer, but I feel like, a pen and paper is so powerful for this type of thing. Um, and in retrospect, it's funny because, especially me talking about it now, I realize that the times that I was hesitant to create these lists were really because the people or situations I was in were they were so bad that I didn't want to face the truth. I knew they were bad for me, but I was so scared of not being loved by them that I couldn't even think for myself. And I'll say it right now, I never want to be that person ever again. The next time you're in a situation that feels messy or leaves you questioning your self worth, write a list of pros and cons down. What are the good qualities this person has? Or let's say, what are the positive things in this relationship? What are the negatives? It also helps to just be really simple here, because sometimes we romanticize people and it's hard to see them for who they really are. If you make a list of pros and cons, see which side's longer. Then when you're all done, really look at what that says. Take it all in. Look at it over and over again. How do you feel? Are they still the same person to you? I feel like I have to add in here, this doesn't necessarily mean that every person on the receiving end is a bad person. It just means that they're not right for us. And also, maybe we didn't communicate our boundaries well enough. Maybe we didn't tell them what we wanted or what kind of way that we needed to be loved. And I personally didn't always speak up for myself until I got older. But what's funny is that's when I really noticed people having issues. Um, I feel like when you first meet people, it's hard because they create an idea of you in their heads, and maybe they put you on a pedestal. They might see you as the most perfect person that they've ever met. They've been waiting for someone like you their whole life. But then suddenly you have a voice of your own, and it scares them. And I think maybe because it means you might choose to leave them one day. You might not see them as so special forever. This is why communication is key. We should all be honest with ourselves and the people we love. So hopefully we can try to form lasting bonds, not try to impress people, and certainly not impress them into staying with us forever. Some people aren't meant to be in our lives forever. Sometimes they're just small actors in our bigger journey. Sometimes they're really just lessons. This is why, as we go through life, it's important to stand up for yourself. You have to learn how to say no. Because, especially if you are a people pleaser, you're going to want to say yes to them all the time. If you really love someone, and let's just say a friend or significant other, a family member, like I said, it's harder because they are family. But you have to stand up for yourself, and you can't just always do things that you don't want to do and say yes to situations that you don't want to be in because you're afraid of hurting them. Because in the end, the only person who's going to be hurt is you. And it's only going to get worse as time goes on because you're going to harbor resentment towards them. The things that you didn't want to say yes to, but you did because you love them so much, they probably wouldn't really even appreciate that if they knew the true reason. When you say yes to people, they're assuming that you really want to do it. They're not thinking you're doing it out of guilt or because you feel like you have to. Nobody wants to be loved by obligation. They want to be loved freely and wholeheartedly. And the intention is always the truest thing. Being authentic with your no is the most important thing you can do. So, this is an example for me because I'm a homebody, and a lot of the times on my days off or after work or whatever it is, I like to be home. And I'm an introvert, so I really value my alone time. I love to go out and do things with the people I love, don't get me wrong. But we all have those days or weeks or like times when we just want to be home and maybe we don't really want to do anything. We just want to like lay around the house in our sweats or whatever it is. Maybe I want to play video games that day. I'll be honest now and I'll just say, instead of saying like, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z, or I have to get up early to do this, I'm going to go see somebody, or I don't know, like I already have plans. You could obviously just say that. But if I really just want to go home and play video games, I'm just going to say that. When you're open and honest about who you are and what you want from other people and who you want to be for those people, it's so much easier to just be authentic in every way you move in life. And that means you might say no, but they will still love you because you're being who you are and you're being true to yourself. And you'll make time for them another time. But it's funny, like in the past, I used to just say yes to everything, things I didn't want to do, but I was afraid if I said no, that they wouldn't love me. They wouldn't want to be my friend anymore. Little things like that are so, it's like the most truest form of self sabotage because you're not only thinking that people won't love you anymore for being yourself, but you're also becoming a watered down version of yourself so you can fit into spaces that you're not supposed to be in anyway. If you're friends with people or in a relationship, whatever it is, that you are not moving authentically, it's only going to cause you harm and harm to them in the long run. Because how are you supposed to have an honest and loving relationship if you can't even tell people what you want? And sometimes the ways that we want to be loved are different from what we expect other people to, how we expect other people to love us. So try to remember that next time you want to say no, but you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I've worked really hard to leave my people pleasing in the past. And it's hard for a lot of us because we are genuine, kind, loving people. And we truly want the best for others. We want people to be happy. But sadly, I've learned that not everyone has the same heart as you. They might say, I love you, but they probably just love the benefits. Not to sound cold, but I've realized that I had to reduce a lot of situations to this simple of an idea to be able to understand it. Something else that was a hard pill to swallow is that people can be whoever they want to be, and that's okay. Pouring your love into them will not make them stay. And sometimes it actually makes us seem weak, even though kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. But sometimes the people we love are really just the wrong people for us, and that's okay. We can send them off with our love and wish them the best from afar and try to give ourselves that love that we needed all along. Another thing with being a people pleaser is it's really important to highlight the root of the issue here. Most of our attachments form in early childhood when you didn't feel safe or loved. So you've gotten used to a type of love that is chaotic. Maybe you couldn't speak up freely for yourself. So you just kind of have to identify your triggers or your wounds, and you have to really feel in that moment how you're feeling. Like, what sort of emotions are you feeling? Recognize what your intuition is telling you. The more in tune you can become with your intuition and your gut, you will be a lot better off. I've learned this the hard way because if something doesn't make you feel happy and fulfilled, your body will try to warn you before anything else. Your mind is the last thing to really accept your fate, so to speak. But I feel like a really good example of this is, let's say you're dating someone and it's like the early stages or you're talking and everything's really exciting. Often during these times, we'll get butterflies in our stomach. And it's funny because I think a lot of us were under the impression that butterflies were good because, butterflies are sweet. They're cute little colorful creatures flying around and they're kind of romantic. But if you get butterflies, run away. Stop. Like it's your body trying to warn you because if let's say you randomly think about them, is your heart beating out of your chest, sinking into your stomach, your gut's trying to guide you and warn you that something is off with the situation. And I always thought it was some sort of nervous excitement, but mostly it's a red flag. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, like, oh, it's a red flag, or that means they're a narcissist, they're love bombing you. But that shit is real. And I think it's true for a lot of people that I've known. It's definitely true for myself. So I think it's really important to try to be more in tune with your body and listen to these signs. And let's say you're talking to somebody and I feel like it's really normal in this day and age of technology when we're always on our phones and we're texting somebody or we text somebody and we're waiting for a text back. It's normal to not get a response for a few hours, even if somebody is not at work or, people are so busy in their lives. They're not always just having their phone right by them. But also, in another sense, if you're not getting a text back for like a whole day later and they don't have a valid response or reason on why they didn't text you back, that's kind of a red flag. Anybody that's not going to prioritize you enough and make you feel safe and secure, even in the earliest stages of dating, when yes, we're both busy, but you should be making somebody feel like their time is valued. And if you can't even send a text back in a timely manner that takes like 2 seconds to send, how's your day going? Or, hey, I'm really busy at work, but I hope you're having a good day. If you get butterflies when you're waiting for that text back, I personally think it's a red flag. I think it means that the person isn't making you feel loved or appreciated enough. Your nervous anxiety is really speaking to you through your body. And if they're not going to make you feel safe and secure and appreciated in the earliest stages of dating, how do you think that's going to feel when you set boundaries for yourself and you start telling them no? Obviously, I feel like it doesn't mean that they're a selfish monster, but they're clearly just so into their own time that that's really all that matters to them. And I think kind of dissecting that situation and making it something clear cut and simple like that really makes a lot of sense. I think the more that we can kind of get away from romanticizing problems that we face and just, making them simple things, it really helps us in the long run because at the end of the day, we try to overcomplicate everything. If like you're not getting a text back or something's going on in your life or like you said no to a friend and now they won't talk to you, it's so easy to kind of spiral and think of all these thoughts like, oh, well, maybe they're doing X, Y, and Z, or maybe you'll go into like the kind of anxious mentality of, oh God, did I say the wrong thing? Do they not love me anymore? How about you reframe your brain into thinking, well, kind of like, fuck that. If they don't want to be in my life, then I'm not going to allow that sort of behavior, you know? Why are you putting all the emphasis on them and making them out to be some sort of God when you're the creator of your own destiny? If something doesn't sit right with you, remove it from your life. It's that simple. Once you start saying no more often and you stand up for yourself, it'll get easier over time. I know for a lot of people it's hard when you think of letting people down, but also you have to remember the right people will always stay. Who truly love you for you will always stay because they love you. It's not because they're expecting anything in return. And don't get me wrong, life is about reciprocity. We talked about this last time. You should definitely be making sure that each person is happy and fulfilled and doing things that each other wants to do. But if you feel like it's a one sided relationship where you have to always say yes, otherwise you might lose them, they're not your person. If you have to lose yourself in order to keep someone, let them go. You'll feel much happier in the long run. And the more attached you are to people, the worse you're going to feel. So today I'll leave you with this: the idea that attachment and expectation breeds discontentment. Try to focus more on saying no when you don't want to say yes. Because if you're so attached to somebody that you feel like you have to say yes in order to keep them, it's not worth it. Nothing in life is guaranteed. So the more you attach yourself to people or ideas, the more anxious you will feel. You're not going to be happier if you're not staying true to yourself. Being authentic and showing up for people is worth way more than being a yes man. And the only thing we have is ourselves. And always remember, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive.